Oh, greetings. Thank you each for being present today. I am very delighted to be joined by one of my fantastic favourite guests, Santos. Thank you for sharing space with me today.
Thank you, Philip. My pleasure. It's great to be with you again.
Yeah, you look radiant today, sir. In the middle of spring, we're here in fixed Earth, Taurus. How are you feeling?
Pretty good. It's always hot here in Mexico. I just came out of the beach about half an hour ago, so the salt water really just makes me feel really energized and cleans the aura up a little bit, makes you recharge. It's just absolutely beautiful. Even though the ocean is receding, it's funny, it's receded by about 10 meters in the last couple of weeks. So that's a phenomenon I've never ever known about. It's not anything to do with tides. But when I first got here to this cabana here, the ocean, the waves were like about so, and right up close to my cabana, I'm right on the beach, and now they are flat. There's no waves, no ocean, no waves. I can't hear anything. It's all quiet, and it's 10 meters out, and it's dropped by about 3 to 4 meters.
Wow, that's very interesting.
Wow. It is interesting. I've asked the locals and they say it always happens in May. It recedes for about 10, 20 meters, and all the rocks out in the ocean, you can walk up to them, and it does happen. So I'm now on a quest to understand what this is.
So it kind of reveals a whole part of the land where you can go explore new territory, which you wouldn't have seen in the other months.
Yeah, and it's got nothing to do with daily tides at all. It's like a yearly tide.
So do you think it's got anything to do with this part of the cycle of the moon, and how the moon's closer at certain points of the year, has a bigger gravitational pull on the supermoon, supposedly?
That's a good point. Yeah, the moon exalts in Taurus, so there must have some influence in May, which they say is the month when this happens, and then it peaks in Cancer. So till June, July, there's 2 or 3 months of real moon energy on the Earth. I guess I'll have to look into that as being one of the causes.
Well, what about, is it anything to do with the declination of the lunar cycle towards how close it is to the sun? Other parts of the lunar cycles across the year, over the 13 lunar cycles we have, it's going to be further away from the sun's course, out of bounds. And while in Taurus, it's probably more close to the sun. And through this part of the cycle with the Scorpio full moon. I know that actually the last full moon in Libra was the biggest and the closest one for the year, but this isn't normally what I would follow. This is more, this is not an astrological experience, is it? This is more an experiential, astronomical phenomenon.
It could be the moon's influence as it goes toward the Tropic of Cancer, pulling things to the north, if that's where the waters are going. I'll have to just check this. I've done some online research, and there is an article talking about the oceans receding right now in Oaxaca. So a lot of people tend to think it's local, but it just can't be.
Well, I'm here in the UK, which is beneath the Tropic of Cancer, and so I live by the ocean. And I haven't walked by it today, so I can't say my experience of it today, but it does come up and down quite a lot. It can go quite far out sometimes, but a few weeks ago in January, it was really bringing up all of the stones far up onto the promenade, which wouldn't normally be the case, but it's just dragging everything up. But we'll see. I'll check it out and I'll get back to you.
Yeah, I'm going to look into it. It's something that's got me really perplexed, and I'm on a lead here. I'm going to try and work it out as per the geocentric stationary horizontal true Earth model. And of course, there have been some geocentric stationary Earthers like Gabrielle Henriette who have explained this as a yearly breath cycle which affects all the waters. So I'm really watching this, because when I first got here, the ocean was scary. It was like loud all day long, roaring, and now I can't hear it.
It's very interesting. It's very interesting. And so with regards to, you say that the cycles of the ocean.
Breath cycles, yes.
Go on.
It was
I was just tapping into what you said about the geocentrism of it, and so the ocean's got its own cycle, and this is something that we're not really being present with and learning about so much. But since our last conversation with regards to declination, I've come into a bit of an awareness about it a bit more with regards to how we experience this, because declination is 23 degrees of the sun either side, and if planets are out of that, then they're out of bounds of the course of the sun, they're out of bounds of the zodiac, right? But this has only happened since we would fallen out of holy matrimony with the earth, because we would have had more of a golden age. In a sense, the sun would have been perpetually in its cycle in ancient cosmological standards, and so it would, in a sense, maybe never set, and we'd be within twilight, because we were honouring our connection to our bodies, each other, and the actual earth with agricultural farming. And so this is, I feel like, because we don't honour the earth, we've fallen into the seasons, and what they call in our education systems, they've given the earth its tilt. And so they say that the ball is tilted by 23 degrees, just like how we know as astrologers there is a 23-degree declination, because we're out of harmony with the earth. We're out of our golden Goldilocks harmonic with nature. And so we are kind of like fallen from our graces, as what many of these passages and scriptures teach us about, a bit like even Jack and Jill come and the story of the creation of Venus, which rules Taurus, because Jack came tumbling down and broke his crown, which is our connection to ourselves, and it's our connection to earth, because we're marinating within our own productivity, and the earth does too when we honor it. But we've kind of fallen out of it because we've become so reliant on our corporations, on our states, and our going outside of ourselves to churches, when we can actually just honor ourselves by going watering the earth and having some of the luxurious fruits off the trees.
Yeah, so in cosmology, this is explained as in the age of Saturn, when Saturn ruled and was the central sun, there was one season year-round. You still had the 4 seasons, but they were not as contrasted as they are now, and polarized and diverging. They were there in that the fruits always came in April and the blossoms, etc. But then when Jupiter castrated Saturn and took over, they all concur that Jupiter created the 4 seasons. So it's kind of like explaining the fall from the Iron Age, the Satyuga, to the Treta Yuga, which is the Silver Age, where the weather starts changing on the Earth. Now, I understand this. I understand how this works and can explain it in the true toroidal field model of the Earth. There is a perfect way of explaining it. Since everything is atomic and atoms are torus fields, therefore your body is atomic, hence your anatomy, and the universe is as well. So the solar system is an atom.
So can I pause? The word anatomy, I just come across this the other day, because this is perfect, brilliant science, right? You're teaching the holy greatness that is self-recognizable once you do enough astrology and work. And so anatomy, just the word anatomy, ana, derived from Venus, which is anana, or the beauty that comes from within the spirit. And so tom, or is time, or tom-toms, the drums, which is the tomb that we are within. Each of them are us within a vessel which is made out of atoms which come together to create this anatomy, which is our spirit vehicle.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Anna is the feminine goddess, fire. Anna is found in words like anagogic. Anagogic is the ultimate and highest level of spirituality. It's above the philosopher, the spiritualist. It's mystical. This one will be allegorical. This will be anagogic. Anagogic, Anna is fire. It comes from Hannah. It comes from Agni, Igni, to burn or fire. Igni, Agni, Anna. Saint Agnes or Saint Agni is nothing other than she's always holding a lamb, and that's Aries, fire, plasma, the creator.
So the
Jehovah.
last month we did our video on Aries, and we spoke very clearly and directly about the lamb, like what you're saying, the firstborn. However, in the zodiac as we know it, Aries is a very masculine, assertive sign, which is great for learning how it works. But we also learn that there is this asteroid Eris, which is the more subtle, as you say, fire, the feminine fires of the spirit, which is almost we don't get taught about so much in the teachings of the patriarchal titans, like the Roman teachings of the mythology. And so there is this undercurrent of the feminine energy of the warrior spirit as well in Aries, which also is ironically always, especially this year, it's been falling on East Star Day that the sun was conjunct it. And that was also the first day of the sidereal or Vedic calendar as well. I noticed all of this because it was being brought up, because it was actually the same time as we had Jupiter and Pluto square the sun on Easter Day. Anyway, that's a massive detour, Santos. I don't mean to distract you from teaching the good stuff, but it's all very interesting because it's all very interrelated, because it blends from Aries into Taurus now, which is much more known for its feminine magnetic quality, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So
earthly magnetic.
Sorry, yeah. So how to explain how the starry dome precesses against the ecliptic of the sun is quite easily if you understand how a torus field works. A torus field should be named, as Ken Wheeler correctly and appropriately calls it, a reciprocating precessional hyperboloid torus field. So you've got all these people that just talk about the torus field. Well, inside the torus field is this hourglass thing called the hyperbola, and that's the inverse of the sphere. Hence, the other half, and the reason why Ken Wheeler says you cannot talk about torus fields without speaking about hyperbolas. And that's where we're going to get to with the Taurus conversation that we're going to have today, because it is shortened to the bull or Baal, the god Baal. So the processional bit is what is the key. That is the key to understanding all atomic systems. Embedded in a torus field is a function called precession, or what physicists will nowadays call the Lemuer frequency, or electromagnetic retardation, or electromagnetic...
So Lemuer, so it's like Lemuria, which is a backwards mathematics? Okay.
Well, no, Lemuer is a Frenchman, an electrician from a couple hundred years back, who was first documenting this, that every torus field reciprocates. We know that because we all go like this when we talk about a torus field. It's reciprocating. What's going up and then in is going out and under. It's reciprocating like the Ouroboros eating its tail. And in the middle is the plane of inertia, which swallows all of those lines of force up or gives them up. So they go in this end, come out that end. They go out that end, come in this end. It's reciprocating. That's called a reciprocation. But
so can I share, like, because you're explaining something which I could draw here. So we got, this is the very normal kind of obvious toroidal field that we were explaining, with this being the hypergoloid in the middle. But if we was to actually look at this from a bird's eye view, from the top down, like this, obviously, if we were looking at it like that, it would be a circle, a bit like a sunflower. And in that sunflower, what we can do is we can write the Fibonacci numbers patterns, like a magic circle, and it spirals in and it spirals out at the same time, just like you're saying, which is very similar to the song Bob Marley wrote, Exodus. because the numbers go funneling out from the top, from the crown, and also back in from the outside in. So it's a bit like a dance that they do with the maypole in Taurus time on Beltane.
Yeah, so if you look at a magnetic field through a magnetic viewing film, you can see white lines and black lines. And that is the white and black yin and yang. Black light is centripetal, convergent, resting. White light is centrifugal, divergent, motion. So it's rest and motion. Black light is resting. White light is moving. That's magnetic. Black light is dielectric. And
So
they work.
In our emotional experience of the manifestation of this, white light is what we are attending to, what we're familiar with, my personality, you know, all the what we bring out and what we do. However, the dark light is maybe those stories about ourselves that we don't attend to, like what we're unfamiliar with, maybe our fears or the things that we don't like and we don't want to be interested in.
Yeah, well, the dark light is how you access your power and potential because it is resting. That's where it is.
So,
it's like
the dormant dark light has all of the potential for change if you're brave enough to face your own fears, if you're brave enough to go into the cave of potential. And it's basically when you go into meditation and contemplation and say, what am I going to do with my day today and what am I going to create?
Yeah, so black light is seeking counter space, white light is seeking space, time space. So the precession, this dome which has the fixed stars in it, that is where the electromagnetic retardation is happening. And it goes against the ecliptic and the planets on the ecliptic circling over the Earth. So the sun will do 365.25 turns over the Earth every year, whereas the dome is slower. I'm sorry, it's faster. It does 360 turns per year. And this is where we get the difference between 360 and 365.25. Because 2,750 years ago, all cultures adjusted their clocks, their years, from 360 days to 365.25. And they called these the holy days and named one after each planet.
Can we pause? And I want to go over exactly what you just said again, just so that it can sink in. And so the starry vault, the firmament, which is ruled by Uranus, in a sense, is basically the turning, what did you say, 365 times a year. Every single day it's turning one direction. And the sun...
360 days.
360. Whereas the sun is also turning around the Earth, above the Earth, and it's doing it at the same rate or a different rate?
No, it's slower because it takes 365 days to complete a year. So sidereally and tropically, this is the difference between the 2 days, the sidereal day and the tropical day, the sidereal year and the tropical year. Well, the tropical year is the ecliptic. It's the sun dragging all the so-called planets, including the moon, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, dragging them in its Taurus field around the Earth. The sun is the master vortex, which drags them around the Earth, over the Earth. Okay. And so that ecliptic, that's the tropical point. We know that when the sun goes through the equinox in the middle, it's Aries. Goes up to the Tropic of Cancer, 90 degrees. Then goes through the middle again, Libra. Then goes 90 degrees out to Capricorn, the other solstices. So here you have the solstices, and here you have the equinoxes.
Would you suggest that the sun's making straight lines across the Earth? Like straight lines over the course of the cycles, like a diamond cutting kind of triangle, like in the Vedic astrology, they use straight lines. in a diamond. Would you say that across the plane, the Earth, over the course of the seasons, is actually moving straight? Every single day it does its circle, and its diameter changes throughout the course of the seasons, would you suggest? The diameter of its continuation of its cycle daily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so at the Tropic of Cancer, the sun is very, very high from the Earth. It's the highest point, 21st of June. No, in fact, 4th of July, 2 weeks after, is what's called aphelion, when the sun is the furthest away from the Earth. July 4th, aphelion, a couple of weeks after the Cancer solstice, because it's up high and it's doing small circles around the North Pole. And then as it goes down, it gets closer to the Earth and makes bigger, larger circles at Capricorn. And that's called, on the opposite of July 4th, January 4th, that's called perihelion, which means it is the closest the two bodies ever come. And that's because Capricorn is low, Cancer is high.
Okay, so this Cancer tropic, which is the closest that the sun comes to the central space of the map, which is right above the UK, it's only here for that summer solstice in which is June, July, right? And so basically, when we're having that Cancer time, it is always daylight. There's only about 4 or 5 hours of nighttime here. But in Capricorn time, when it's Christmas and when it's my birthday, it's dark all the time here, Santos. It's hardly ever light.
I know. Yep, because you are above the Tropic of Cancer, not below. You're out of it. You're out of the tropics.
So when you're at home, when you're in New Zealand or Australia, when you've been there, when it's Capricorn time, it's always sun shining.
Hot. Yeah, of course, because now Australia being in the southern hemisphere, which is the outer side of the Earth, well then Capricorn is out here, Cancer is here, and it services the northern part of the equator, what they call the northern hemisphere.
So if the sun is moving at a wider diameter in those Capricorn times,
of course,
does that mean that the sun's actually moving faster?
Yes. Yeah.
How cool's that?
Yeah, well, it's like this. If I've got let's say I've got a torch in my hand, and I'm standing with the torch in my hand and I'm doing circles. I'm scribing circles around me, and every circle takes me five seconds to complete. And I do not change my central velocity, angular velocity. It's always the same, 5 seconds to complete a circle. Now, there's the angle of the torch. It is scribing a circle with a diameter that big as I go around. And that's the Tropic of Cancer. So when the sun goes to the Tropic of Capricorn, the angle is changed, and now it's scribing larger circles over the Earth.
So you could say it's the arc angle that's changing.
Yeah. So I'm still doing, my velocity is exactly the same. It's angular velocity, and I'm just changing the angle of this, of the tangent to the sun and the dome and the North Pole. So this is the North Pole here, you see. So now, but I'm still taking five seconds to complete a circle. It's just now that the light is scribing a larger circle, and that's how it works. The sun is doing a way smaller circle. In Srimad Bhagavatam, in Canto 5, it describes this. It says the sun is going down to the Tropic of Capricorn on a ramp as it circles the Earth, Bhumandala, on the island of Jambuduri, and then it goes up the ramp to Cancer. And they call this the ramp, the Ram right ascension of meridian, you see. So precession, this is how it works. The dome, when we study sidereally the zodiac, and it's out of sync with the tropical ecliptic, that's because of electromagnetic retardation, which is embedded in all systems, or electromagnetic precession.
So when Tesla invented his coil of generating torsion, generating energy, and the wind-up radio, and when we see a cricket, or when we hear a cricket in the field making a noise, making a right old racket, rubbing its legs together, that's creating torsion. A bit like when we have sex, that creates torsion, and eventually you have a frequency which is an orgasm or a release, or an energetic give-off. And so this is a generating system, this torsion field, which is a natural system within all of our atoms. It's atomic by nature, right? And what was the word? Dipole? You were saying how it's a retardation of maths, backwards maths, and dipole was a particular word, dielectric.
No, it's not dielectric. It's see, electromagnetic retardation means, see, every torus field cannot just reciprocate. If every atom just did this, there would never be ionic bonding. There would never be molecules, because atoms would not join onto atoms. It has to process. The field has to process. So in other words, this is going like this all the time. And the rate of that, I think it's 22, there is a rate. I don't want to misquote.
Is it 72 years per degree of the zodiac that the sky turns above?
Yes. So the dome is this outer part of the atomic toroidal solar system that we live in. The planets are inside of that on the ecliptic, making the tropical zodiac. The sidereal zodiac is always turning because it's going faster, it's precessing against it. So that's what people are watching, that's what astronomers are watching. They'll tell you now that the sun is not in Taurus, it's in Aries, correct. But in astrology, tropical astrology, we say that it's in Taurus because it is on the ecliptic and in harmony with the seasons, which never move. But the backdrop of those stars, which supposedly are supposed to hook up and connect correctly with the 30-degree segments on the ecliptic, they will always be moving and precessing when we have Jupiter as the ruler of the cosmology, because that's when everything is degraded. And see,
so not Saturn. So we've got it's Jupiter. Can you explain that?
Saturn was the Golden Age ruler. So when Saturn is the ruler, precession is manipulated. Ken Wheeler explains this as he says, the only way to use magnetism for energy, for free energy, is to know how to manipulate the rate of precession of every toroidal field. And you can bring it into balance so that it's all, so the sidereal, the dome, and the ecliptic, the tropical, are in sync. That's the golden age, because there's no unbalance, there's no precession, or at least precession has been manipulated and brought back in tightly to be perfect, and that's how the golden age comes. It levels out and harmonizes the contrast and the unbalance in nature.
As for us to contribute to that, would you suggest that means doing the honoring of our body honouring of the cycles, honouring of our relationships to each other and of the earth, actually brings us into this harmony state, this golden age, this golden harmonic.
I guess we're part of bringing it back to balance. That's why we're here, and we have power to do that. Maybe we need to unlock that power, discover that power, unleash it, wield it, but definitely that power does not return to unworthy ones. People on the left-hand path will never experience that power, but those who endure on the right-hand path will reacquire all of their powers. And once we do that, we can bring this into being. We can manifest it so that it transpires and we return back to the golden age.
Sounds great. Sounds great. And so that's almost like a whole allegory for the Taurus archetype and the collective's role within the Taurus archetype and how it works within our cosmology, which is very powerful for us to digest.
Yeah.
And so the actual archetype of Taurus itself is all about producing something from showing up every single day. Like when you practice an instrument or when you learn a craft like gardening or cookery. And so when we apply ourselves every single day, a bit like when we learn a thing like astrology or learn another language, it does take continued practice. But at first you might not be very good if you're learning a guitar or trying to speak another language, might hit a few duff notes, might say a few wrong pronunciations. But eventually you become so good that you can't help but feel great about yourself.
Yep.
You're like, wow, I bet you when you've done something cool on guitar, Santos, you feel pretty supreme within your own abilities because you're like, wow, I sound pretty good. And the compliments that I get from those people just reaffirm that.
Yep. Cool.
And so that's when a bit like how the ram's born in the pineal gland, and this becomes our creative juices, which we can either our production line. We can either create a child, or we put it into our craftsmanship. We put it into our trade labours. And so just like what you explained with the cosmology of the dark energy, the potential, we work with the movement and we give ourselves what we need. Like when you need bread, you drag in from the outside in. You drag in from the outside, from the parameter of the circle, back in, just like the mathematical plan of Fibonacci in the sunflower that we explained, the toroidal field. And so there is some really great rhymes that work with Taurus, that ramble, that go and use the knowledge of how we bring in to manifestation our own inspiration. Can you bring some into retort? Are you able to share any with us today, please, Santos?
Well, Taurus is the second sign, and it's the motor of the universe. Aries is the generator, plasma fire, and earth solidity. So Taurus brings about the Taurus field and makes things firm and fixed. So Taurus...
I like that, because it's like if you're making meringue. If you're making meringue, you don't want it to be all runny. You want it to be able to whip it in a bowl so much that you can hold it above without the meringue falling back out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So firm and thick. It's got dexterity to it.
Yep.
Like if I was to book you to come and play a gig or to come and talk about astrology, I rely on you, Santos, because you're a good man of your word. And your word is your bond. A bit like when you put the energy into whipping up meringue, it stays firm.
Yep. Yep, exactly. So we need that earthiness for stability, reliability, and value. And that's what Taurus brings. This is why in the month of, I think it's Laya of the Jewish system, after Aries Nisan, that God gave unto the children of Israel the Torah. So Taurus being the mouth, Aries is the head, the cerebrum, Taurus is the cerebellum, and the shoulders and neck and the mouth, the philosopher, the speaker. And so the one who talks about the Torah. And so
And
you
Lyra was an old name for the month of where we are now, which is April into May. And Lyra is also an ancient instrument as well. So like our vocal box, we can sing and we can pronounce and we can talk which creates torsion fields. We were gifted this ability.
It's actually lyre. It's not lyra.
Oh, excuse me.
But it doesn't matter, because I'm just correcting your pronunciation, not the fact that you're correct. It's an anagram of lyra, the harp, and the singing word of God, because it is the word of God, the Torah, the Taurus field, because that's where you speak from, word. And that's why if you look at any cathedral in the shape of a human, well, the head part of the cathedral is where the Holy of Holies is, right at the back of the cathedral. These are the two arms. Where your feet are, Pisces fish, those are the doors where you enter. And you come up, and right here, in every cathedral, is what's called the altar. Altar is an Aramaic word for altor, God, the God Tor, because God in Deuteronomy 34 or 32 verse 4 calls God the Tzur, T-Z-U-R, and that's none other than Tor, the Taurus, the rock. It's called it's translated as God the rock. So Taurus, Tzur, in Hebrew, is the Taurus, the rock, because it's firm and fixed. So the altar, is always here where your pineal gland is, your pituitary body, and that's where the 10 Commandments are, which is the pituitary body contains, well, that's the Ark of the Covenant, and it has the manna from heaven, and it has the 10 Commandments in it, because it governs the endocrine system. So it has the 10 Commandments for the endocrine system. So the altar is always in a cathedral where Taurus is in your body, astrologically, and it always corresponds with the altar in heaven, which is the Pleiades, corresponding to the pineal gland. And the Pleiades has a star in it, one of 7 stars, the 7 sisters, which is at the top called Alcyone or Alcyone. And Alcyone is where all the ancients said is the throne of God. It's the pineal gland, the Pleiades, the Pleiadians, etc. And the other second most important star that it sextiles with is Sirius, the God star. So you've got Alcyone in Taurus, and you've got next door Sirius in Gemini, the dog star. So Alcyone is basically where the altar is. You offer up your mundane mind to your subtle mind, and you offer up the lower animals, the bulls. That's why they would sacrifice a bull. And generally in Taurus, the lamb was sacrificed in Aries. So
it's a good example then, Santos. Then so it could be like, for instance, the mundane would be, I'm going to talk about the weather. I'm going to talk about something that's a bit meaningless, some news story, but that's just really meaningless chit chat. But when you really have a good conversation, a bit like what we're doing, we're creating a sacrifice, and we're altering our attention to talk from something that's truly important. And that's a good example. And so basically, also, I live here in Chichester, in the UK, and that we have a cathedral in a city. And in our cathedral, just like you explained, you walk in by the feet, you've got the 2 arms, and with the chapels, you go right down past lots of other gubbins, and you get to the altar, just like what you said. And underneath our altar in Chichester, we've got a very nice zodiac painted on the floor.
As always. As always, yeah. Or they have 12 disciples, and they try and tell you that those were literal men. It's absolutely pathetic, you know. It's so sad. It's astrology.
And so they are the different 30 degrees of the sun throughout the course of the cycle, and which bring in different energetic forces. Like when we were talking a month ago, when the sun was in tropical Aries, it's a completely different cardinal energy, all kinds of new information. But now it's Taurus, fixed Earth. It's a different vibe.
Yep. So you used the word before, alter, to alter something. Well, that's the same as alter, the altar where you sacrifice your lower nature to the gods. When you reach the pineal gland, you get rid of all the lower chakras and you illuminate this one, and you are altered at the altar. And that always happens in Taurus, where the Pleiades is 6 degrees Taurus. Therefore, it is associated with the Torah and the tarot. Tarot meaning rota, the rotating Taurus field. That's why if you want to know God, you have to know about magnetism, because that's God. Conscious, unlimited, unconditioned energy fields coming from...
Basically, you're just very attractive. You're not a magnet if you don't do what you enjoy, because you feel like shit. You feel like crap when you don't wake up and go out into nature. You feel like you're not very valuable if you don't have the opportunity to listen to your favorite type of music or speak to somebody who you enjoy, who enjoys you. Because when we actually do what we like, when we do what we love, we get a buoyancy. A bit like a young boy floats on the ocean, a bit like how in the biblical tale, Jesus would walk on water. When we do what we love and we're not feeling depressed or indebted to the banks or to this or to that, when we haven't had people take our energy from us or we've given it away, we've not victimized ourselves by giving our power away, we've got that floating kind of feeling that we're flying, because we are creating this kind of luminosity, this weightlessness, and that's what this productivity is all about.
Yes, exactly. So when you said there before that magnetism is attractive, it's actually opposite. Magnetism is repelling. Dielectricity is attracting. So
what I meant to say is, that when we do what we love, we're radiant, so we're giving off a certain type of energy, but we draw in what the qualities which are most beneficial for us, like, for instance, money.
Correctly. Yeah, I understand what you were trying to say, but this is a good point for everyone, the listeners, to understand that you also said just then that magnetism is radiating. That is correct. Therefore, it cannot be attracting. Radiation repels. Radiation is always moving out radially. That's magnetism. Dielectricity is coming back.
So this can be equally explained with the toroidal field in a very useful way with our arms, like with swimming. If you want to swim down, then what you do is you have a certain action that allows you to go down like this, wouldn't you? You push up and down. But if you were swimming up, you push the water down and up. And so the way that the arms moves teaches you how the vortex would move, right?
Absolutely.
Because I can't even swim, Santos. I've never ever swam before underwater like that. I've only played Tomb Raider Lara Croft to be able to feel into that. But it's just common sense, isn't it?
It is, because all the field mechanics in every medium, whether it is solid, gas, liquid, or plasma, they are all the same. Hence, in water, you get a whirlpool. In the air, you get a tornado, torning. In fire, you get volcanoes, which are Taurus fields, clearly. And in earth. And in fire, you get what's called fire devils, which are also whirlpool tornadoes. There's only one form, and that is the Taurus field.
So when we're creating, I've said use the analogy of meringue and Yorkshire pudding, but it's really about a batter. So when you get battered about by the vortex field, which is this tornado or toroidal field, this is the cycle of events that is almost stirring things up. Stories stir things up. They rouse kind of emotion, a bit like when you see a beautiful person who you are drawn towards. You're aroused by them, by their radiance, by the energy that they're emitting or giving off. They're emitting to themselves that they're valuable. They're emitting that they're quality. If you're selling something, like you say, I've got the best, yummiest cakes in town, then you've got to kind of be slightly braggadocious and present a nice logo and emit a nice frequency for people to be drawn to your cakes.
Yep. So when you said there that a beautiful person radiates beautiful energy, that's magnetism. And how they attract you is through its opposite, dielectricity, because dielectricity is inertia and acceleration. Magnetism is force and motion. So basically dielectricity is what they call gravity, gravity, which is wrong. Gravity is a theory. It's correctly called, thank you, Dr. Russell, Walter Russell, it's correctly called gravitation. So you gravitate to their heart, you're attracted, that's the attractive force because it pulls you in. Attraction is pulling in. Magnetism is pushing away. So with magnetism, you radiate out your heart energy. The people get it, love it, they love your radiating heart, and then they are attracted to you. They are drawn to you through the black light, dielectricity.
A bit like how our pupil in the middle of our eye creates this attraction, because nothing can escape darkness. And we know this when you wear a black t-shirt and you get extra hot because all of the light is attracted to the dark t-shirt that you're wearing. It actually makes you warmer. But I'm wearing a white t-shirt today. It's a little bit more light and cool. However, the light is actually information of photons, ions. So all of the information, especially in nature, this is all dull light in here where I'm sat, but when you've got light shining through the trees and through the petals and even the sounds as well that we're attracting into our ears, these are different portals for us to, and the tastes of the fragrances, these are all different parts of our information which we're bringing into our central field.
Yes, the center of my head, for instance, is right here. So what you have now is two eyeballs. Well, they are the bull's eyes. They are the two south pole, north pole of the toroidal energy, which is going in through the eyeball, the bull's eye. So every field has a bull's eye. This is Taurus. That's why you call the target that you hit, you've got to hit the bull's eye, because it's a top-down view of the Taurus field. And when light goes in there, it disappears and comes out the other end. It goes in, does a loop, perpendicular loop through the plane of inertia, one loop, and then goes out the other end. So it goes in like this, loops around here on the plane of inertia, and then goes out. So it's going like this.
Amazing, Santos. So that's like Venus, because Venus takes every 18 months will go retrograde in different parts of the sky. And so from our perspective, looking at it, it does a loop and a little bit more, 100 quincunx, where it last went retrograde from, which is 150 degrees. And so over the course of 8 years, this creates a pentagram or a rose through time. Yes. And so we get awakened to our personal stories and our personal values and all the things that we appreciate over the course of time. The longevity of time is that it's aromatic and it airs out every single layer of our story, and we are aroused and open up to the different fragrances of our own consciousness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
It's beautiful, right? And so we could say that Venus, which is this, as you say, I love what you said, because it's basically going through the top of it's like a circle of this, a circuit of this, one circuit and a half, and then you go through the middle. And that's why they call the bullseye 180. Excuse me, I do get a bit excited, Santos, but it's good stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, this is why we must be good students of the Bible and the Torah. Bull, Taurus, the bull and the Taurus, blue shift, red shift.
So Santos, 360 degrees is a whole circle. I'm beating a dead horse here, but I just want to drum it in one more time. So 360 and then 180 through the middle of the toroidal field, and it's a bit of a flip of the polarity. So Venus is about to go retrograde. It's the evening star right now. It's the evening star. It's the first visible star in the evening sky, and then it sets halfway through the evening, or disappears from our local vicinity at least. And then, but basically, as the sun catches up with it in the next few weeks, we're going to see that actually it is moving above the sun, Venus. You can't see it. It's been what we call taken into the underworld. The sun will be actually closer to Earth, and Venus will be further away from it, above the sun, all local to the plane. And so then Venus will be reborn as the morning star, and we'll see Venus as the last star visible before daybreak. And that is like the Taurian expression of Venus. You could say that the evening star is more Libran, because it's evening things out. It's about the quantifiable balance that we lend our eye to. I mean, do I feel appreciated by this, or do I appreciate that? Is it serving? That's the Venetian evening star. Let's find things that are of equality and balance. Whereas the morning star is about what I can produce, because I've got the whole day ahead of me. The sun's just coming up. And so what we know as Ishtar, the morning star, Venus, the beautiful bell that would wake up in the morning. And the cow Taurus was known as Bell or Bella.
Yes, because the bull is beautiful. It's the holy cow. So you have the Lamb of God, Aries, the cerebrum, and you have the holy bull, the cerebellum, the cerebellum. So they are appropriately named astrologically. No mistake about it. And so the bull, which is the Taurus, the Torah, is the word of God. Hence, it makes torsion fields. And so you'll always have words that have to do with the Taurus and the bull, the hyperbola and the Taurus field. They are either bull-Tor words or Tor-bull words. For instance, a bull-Tor word would be one you mentioned before. Batter. Batter, better, butter, bitter. All right, let's do Tor-bull words. Turbulent, terrible, trouble, travel, adorable. So all these words that end in Tor and bull, which are pretty much every word in the English language, terrible, reliable.
If a word ends in bull, it's at the bottom of the bowl, and it's going to bring things down. But if if the word ends in Tor, it's building things up. Is this correct? Is this what we're following here?
Pretty much, because Taurus is the torsion field, and the bull is actually bringing in the energy back. It's pulling it back.
The Beatles, the Beatles, they sang a song, Helter Skelter. You've got to go up to the top of the Helter Skelter so you can get down. You've got to get up to get down. But if you're actually in the bowels, you're feeling into your bowels, you're like, oh God, I've got a tummy ache. You know, I really could deal with like excreting that kind of feeling from some chemicals that didn't sit well in my bowels.
Yeah, exactly. So the bowels have to do with the bull as well, because that's the where all the food is digested, and it's the second brain, and hence the bull, the Baal, the god Baal, is actually the hyperbola. No wonder it's the most known name for God in the history of the universe. So Baal, Belus, Beelzebub, Baal, Jezebel, Jabulon,
Belly,
diabolical, belly, belle being beautiful in Italian, okay, bella. All of these have to do with the beautiful hyperbola, because it is responsible for time. It is the hourglass, hence it is the timekeeper.
So this is very cool, because when you do things that you love, you don't care about time. In a sense, timelessness comes about oneself, and you get more done because you're just in your own meditation, you're just in your own essence, you're just playing a jingle to your own song, you're marching to the beat of your own drum, in a sense.
Yes. Yep.
Very nice. And so also when we're talking about the belly, we're also talking about the fallopian tubes. We spoke a little bit last week about the more masculine sides, because we were talking about Aries, which is more about the directness of penetration. But when we're actually penetrating into an area, what we're talking about is the fallopian tubes, which is like the bull's horns, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's why it's called a uterus. It's a Taurus. And the Taurus is the uterus where life comes in, shaped with bull's horns, because it is a Taurus. It's a Taurus field attracting souls into it and then bringing the souls into incarnation, giving them torsos, which are just Taurus fields.
So the magnificent women, which are like omens, I mean, whoa, man, they're pretty beautiful. We all came through one.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're like a portal, just like many parts of our bodies, but we come through the women so that we can come into this physical world, our mothers. And if we want to create another vessel through love so that another being can come in to this world, we come into women. And so this is a very holy experience, because it's through a portal is nothing but a wormhole. And when you make love, when you create a space of loving someone, it is a timeless experience if you really are in that kind of love and lust and passion that's really just timely or timeless, as you say. And so whenever we're creating something we love, like you're writing an album, we're talking about astrology, like I've got no idea how long we've been talking to Santos, because it's so, I love this. I love sharing space with you. It's timeless energy. It's a time just escapes a little bit here and there. And I'm grateful for that. So we must be grateful for our women. We must be grateful for the opportunity to do the things that we love. And that's what this Taurus energy is all about. It's creating our own production line, whether it's an actual thing that we're producing, like a very nice selection of food, or, you know, it might be that we're producing an astrology school or whatever it is, or maybe it's actually a family. These are all great quality things that we put our time and energy into.
Yeah, so the woman, either word woman or women, will give you, if you remove the W from either of those words, with one you're left with the word, an anagram for name, and with the other, as you said before, omen. And so when the women give birth to men or women, they are giving them a name, which is embedded in the word woman, and they are making something ominous, because omen from women is the name that they give on that person. For instance, if they call their son George or Michael, that's ominous. That's an omen, because George and Michael signify the archetype of the hero who slays the dragon. So they're actually bestowing an omen onto them through the name onto their children. And if they call them, say, Lucy, well, that's Lucifer, a light bringer, someone who will be enlightened. Christina, well, she will be a Christian, enlightened. Irene, well, she will be peaceful. Agnes, well, she will be pure.
So the characters in our names are different iconographies. They're a bit like, okay, I want to be if I was going to choose to be a person, I would be like, okay, well, I like a little bit of what, for instance, Leonardo DiCaprio. I like a bit of what he does. He's got a good action. He's got a good kind of mind for acting. I like that. Okay, I like a little bit of Santos. So I choose these different characters, which could be different letters. So I've got L and I've got S. And so eventually you get a whole name together. And a bit like how we choose positions when we're born in our natal charts. Like we've got a sun, we've got a moon, we've got a Mars, we've got a Venus. They're different degrees around a zodiac, just like how letters obtain different spaces around a circle. And so our charts are an omen, and our names are an omen. These are the energies that we bring in. These are the energies which we characterize, and we are the personification of.
Yes, exactly. And the letters of the name and the frequency of the name musically, musically, but I'm talking about sonoluminescence, sound and light, that sets the tone, which is ominous, for the rest of your life. This is why sometimes when people change their name, their life changes on a different course. It's incredible how many times people will hark back to the time when they legally or artistically changed their name and went in a new direction in life, because the heavens were telling them that former name served a purpose, had a certain frequency, and now is not suitable anymore for your current stage in development, and you change your name. So you go in a new direction. This is why sometimes you get a baptismal name, because the children were watched for the first years of their lives, and they will see what kind of fruits they produce, and then they will give them what they call a Christian name or a christening name. And so, or a baptismal name, etc. And this is simply because the name sets the tone for what the individual will be and do.
Okay, so before a being would be, for instance, going through a ritual like a baptism, they're on probation with regards to the atonement of the frequency that their name brings them. And so baptism is nothing but being they put a little bit of water on your forehead, or in the ancient older days they just dunk you fully underwater, because it's about being submerged through an experience. And so when you're 7 years old, for instance, a quarter of a Saturn cycle into your life, or a Uranian transit through a sign, you've got some kind of experience that you've been submerged within, being that identity, or that you become the image of your own name.
You do. Yes, that's why branding, corporate logos, company mottos, or company, these are very important. They take a lot of care to select appropriate words, symbols, colors, etc., because that will absolutely embed itself in the consciousness of people and either make or break your endeavor, your initiative.
This is very important, because the name carries, the word is our bond. These characteristics are basically letters, a bit like how an estate agent lets you a house. You borrow a house. When we are having this body, our bodies, our vessels, it's transitory. It allows us to live for maybe 100 years sometimes, if you're really fortunate, maybe longer, maybe less. But it's let. You borrow this, it comes from the mud. It's the clay kind of puppet scenario, right? And so it's got all of the elements within it. Mostly it's water, whatever. But at the end of the day, you give it back. And so just like a house, you let space. And these all come from the post box. Letters, you send them to the North Pole. And so we send them to the polarity of our central space, the hypergoloid, the north polarity of the wormhole. That's where we're letting space from. We're letting space from within us, and we're bringing it outwards. We're producing an effect with the character or the label that we've been given. Yep. So if I could say you're a dunce, Santos, which you're clearly not, that could be really not useful for you. People pick up on labels that people give them, like bullies give people labels, and you're like, it can be really sticky. Once you've got it, it's really hard to get rid of it. And so this is really important for our consciousness, when we realize, not only when we're working with naming the things that we want to be beneficial, but also the things that we kind of put slur on. That's very diminishing for those people as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is. So we need to be careful what comes out of the mouth, because it can dirty the soul. nothing that goes in can contaminate the soul, only what comes out of the mouth. Therefore, words will either be a spell or they will be a blessing, which basically are the same words that both have L in them, and that is the turning torsion fields. So when you talk and create torsion, you can either bless or curse. And so this is why it's so important, because you've only got yourself to harm, really. You can, of course, hurt other people, but you can't hurt anyone else without hurting yourself.
So we can sometimes we notice what we've said just after we've said it, and then we can be like, well, okay, well, I'm not going to beat myself up about it, or I don't have to apologize, but I can see that's a habit which I can shift. I can become more conscious and maybe more hold my tongue and change the habit.
Yes,
speaking that way, even if it's speaking to ourselves, that stupid, exactly. Whatever it might be. You dropped the potatoes on the floor, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's very powerful with our words, because as you explained in the last session about Aries, it's our RAM where we think of an idea, and then sometimes straight away we start saying it before we actually give ourselves the opportunity to stop. And that because it's the ramble, the retortion of our own thinking and our speaking sometimes could be so quick, which is a gift sometimes, but sometimes it can be a chore for us to learn about as well.
Mm-hmm.
So as each of the letters of the alphabet, or each of the different signatures of harmonic from around a wheel, creates different atonements. And so these are, as you explained last time, the rotisserie system of left-hand rotation and right-hand rotation with regards to where the letters fall in the circle, or where the energy falls in the harmonic scales.
Yep. And so at the 4 cardinal points, you'll find very, very crucial named days. At the September 23rd equinox, it's called At-One-ment or Atonement Day or Judgment Day. Interesting. 21st of December in Capricorn, the solstice, that's called St. Thomas Day. Well, Thomas is atom, period. And at the other equinoxes, you've got celebrations, like, for instance, opposite the 25th of December, you've got St. John's Day, St. John the Baptist. And so they all hark back to the atomic words when you know what you're looking for, and sound and sonoluminescence.
So this, again, let's go back to Tesla for a moment. So you say solar luminescence. That's a bit like when you're riding a bike or like a generator and you create enough torsion or friction that you can create light. A bit like a firefly creates light when it's either digesting or doing whatever it's doing within its body to create that luminosity in the darkness.
Mm-hmm.
And so would you suggest that actually we are on the precipice of rediscovering various different ways of how we can create self-sustainable energy on our farms, for our households, for our localized communities, when we don't have to rely on the infrastructure which may have served us up until now for our growth and exploration, and can serve us in various ways if we can curb the enthusiasm of it. But the point being that we can actually be more empowered and sovereign by using this kind of technology and information.
Yeah, for sure. Magnetism. That's how. There's only one way to get back to nature. Magnetism. Not electricity. Magnetism.
So this is why Venus rules Taurus.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Sam, so we're using quite a lot of great time here, and I love the information that we brought through. My last question for you on this subject of Taurus today is, have you got any particular nursery rhymes specifically with regards to how this relate to this time of the year? Like, I know the one with, what's that one with all the pretty flowers all in a row, like cockle shells? You know that nursery rhyme?
Yeah, I do. I don't know.
In spring.
Yeah, I'd have to think about it, but there's many.
I think that comes from Mary, quite contrary. sitting there eating her Little Miss Muffet, wasn't it? Little Miss Muffet sat on her tuffet eating her curds and whey. That was it.
Yes, that's one. Absolutely.
So Little Miss Muffet sitting on her tuffet eating her curds. Curds is the very production line. It's something that's sturdy and thick that's been produced. And so she's in a sense eating the cream of the crop, the riches of her own production.
Yep, for sure. And hickory dickory dock, the mouse ran up the clock struck 1. All of that alludes to the energy going up to the clock or hitting the number 1, the pineal gland. And the mouse is an anagram for soul. So the soul climbs up the clock, and hickory dickory dock is essentially where the Taurus point is, the pineal gland.
It's very sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
I actually sometimes, if you've got a little scratch or something, we've talked about our itches before. Not very nice subject, not our favourite. But I had a little itch here, get a little bit of eczema sometime, whatever. But if I tapped here for a long time, you can actually have a little bit of ejaculate come out without causing any without touching the sexual genitalia, just by tapping the pineal gland area. If you've actually packing, you actually do release a little bit, which is very peculiar. I don't know why I'm mentioning it. It's just because, it's very related, isn't it?
Most probably because, of course, everything comes from the claustrum. So the fluids in the body, the blood, everything.
It's interesting. It's not a stimulated thing. It's just a little release. Anyway,
yeah.
Excuse me, audience, if that's not your cup of tea. But I'm so grateful for you sharing space today with me on this topic, Santos. It's been very enriching, especially that relation to Venus and the cycle and a half, and then the shift. It's very dynamic part of information because it's the ruling star of Taurus. It's very rich information you've shared today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, brother. Until next time. Thank you.